Dale's not with you. What's truth got to do with it? You know, there was a song that said, "What's love got to do with it?" But we're going to talk about what does truth have to do with it. Jesus has been arrested, and he's now being taken before different groups of people because there's an issue that they have in getting rid of Jesus. There are politics involved. And one of the political dilemmas that the Jews had in order to get rid of Jesus was that they had to go through Rome. They hated Rome. Rome were their oppressors. They were in charge. They wanted to have Jesus killed. That was their goal. But they were not allowed to do it themselves. It had to be something that was done by the Romans in order to accomplish it. Jesus is taken, first of all, to a guy named Annas. Now, Annas is confusing in here because he really doesn't have an official role. He's the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest. Isn't that funny? Everybody gets involved when there's sneaky things going on. And here is Annas, and he's meeting with Jesus. And it begins to get a little funny because not only is Annas not really needing to be there, but there are other people involved as well that are confusing. And the whole procedure is not going the way that they would expect. As soon as you start to do something that is wrong, wrong seems to snowball, doesn't it? If you tell a little lie, it grows into a bigger lie, and then you have to tell a bigger lie to cover up the other lie, and it just keeps progressing. Every time you do things that are wrong, that's the way it progresses. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Often people that are involved in a group and doing something wrong, a lot of them are ignorant, and they will start to get even more anxious. And they will get more involved. And they will carry things a little further than was even meant to be carried. That's the way this was turning out. It's not turning out the way maybe they had hoped, or that it'd be as clean and easy as they had hoped. It says, a detachment of soldiers with his commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who had been the high priest that year. And Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it would be good if one man died for the people. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teachings. Jesus said, "I have spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I always taught in the synagogues or at the temple, where all the Jews came together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said." So here they are questioning him and asking him, what did he teach? And he said, I never hid anything from you. There were no secrets. There were no things that I was planning that you didn't know. I did it openly before all the people. And now you ask me these questions. Because people love to ask you questions and try and trip you up. When they're trying to get at you, they love to ask you questions, little sneaky questions, to try to get you to say something that they can take and turn to look like you've done something wrong. And when Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby struck him in the face. And he said, "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" This is not normal proceedings in this day. It was against the law for somebody to be struck or to be coerced in any sort of interview or process of trial. And yet in this situation, people were worked up. People were anxious. And when people get all worked up and they start getting anxious about things, and you get the crowd rolling, pretty soon truth becomes irrelevant. When the mob gets going, they don't care anymore about truth. They care about agendas, about achieving what they want to get done. And here we see a perfect example of that. Jesus is being asked questions about things that he had done publicly. Everybody knew what he had taught. Everybody understood what he had said. Everybody could come in and testify about that. But that wasn't their goal. They didn't want to know what Jesus had been teaching. They wanted him to say something that would incriminate himself. And when he merely asks a question about what is truth, this man strikes him on the face. As if he doesn't have the right to even answer the question. See, often people don't care about truth. In fact, often we don't care very much about truth. We have an agenda that we want to accomplish, each and every one of us. And we don't want to take the time to listen to people or to hear what they have to say or to consider what they are trying to explain to us. Because too often we are trying to achieve an agenda. I can't stand watching the news these days. I don't care which side of the news it is. Whether it's the liberal side or the conservative side. It's all agenda-driven. It's never information telling me things that I need to know so that I can try to make a decision on something. It's all propaganda from both directions. Just trying to convince me how I should think. And I have a leaning, a way that I lean, but even the way I lean, I watch people in that camp do the same exact things. And they fabricate things, and they exaggerate things, and they make up things. And if you were to read or watch news from any angle, you would be convinced that this is happening. But when you pull your head up out of the news, you find out that's not happening. It's not even real. It's not even true. People have agendas. Their agenda doesn't have to do with trying to find truth. It has to do with accomplishing what they want to have happen. God has an agenda too. See, but God's agenda is very different. God's agenda doesn't have to do with trying to manipulate you. And God's agenda doesn't have to do with trying to make you into something you don't want to be. Or to criminalize you. See, God's agenda is to love you. Love you just the way you are. Now, I have found in my life that often, even the people who praise me, even the people who like some things that I do, even the people who want me to do things for them, they want to change me. All my life I've had people say, Steve, I really like what you teach. I like the things you do. I like that you care about people and that you want to see people come to know Jesus. But could you just be a little more conservative? Or could you act a little less crazy? Or could you calm down a little bit? I've been in groups of people who have sat around tables and talked about people and how they can try to use them by changing them. What's funny to me is that every time I've ever been with a group of people that's trying to make somebody fit the role that they want them to fit, they're always trying to make them more like themselves. Because we seem to think that normal is me. Right? Is normal you? That's what you convince yourself of. You go through life saying, those people are crazy. Those are strange people. That's an unusual group of people. Did you enjoy that couple? Yeah, but they were weird. What did you think of that person that came to church? They were unusual, different. By what standard? Your standard. Because guess what? You're normal. Who says? Who says you're normal? You're the norm? But that's how we live and think. Anybody that goes against what we don't like, what we don't do, what we don't tend to see as acceptable or as appropriate, they're weird. They're different. They're unusual. They're not normal. I've started to embrace that. Because as I've thought about it, I thought, why do you want to be normal? God didn't make you normal. Because He didn't make you like somebody else. And what you assume is that that must be wrong. He made me hyperactive. Hyperactive must be unusual or weird or wrong. Who says? God made you that way. God made you the way you are. What is normal? Is normal the pretty people? Is normal the rich people? Is normal the people that get to make all the decisions? Is normal your family, your history, your culture, your background? Is that what normal is? And in every part of life, we see people manipulate in order to change people to be the way they want them to be. You have to fit my norm. What is my normal? And we're having a real problem with that in our country now because people are more different than ever. Coming from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of heritages and all sorts of cultures and families. And the question is God trying to make you normal? That's the beautiful thing about God. God's agenda isn't to try to manipulate you to look like everybody else. That might be the church's agenda sometimes. That might be Western religion's agenda. That might be cultural agenda. But it's not God's agenda. God made you the way you are for a reason. God doesn't want to change who you are. God wants who you are to reflect Him, to radiate Him, for Him to shine through you. God's agenda isn't to try to make you like everyone else. God's agenda is to love you and help you see who you really are and let that fill you up and make you into all that you want to be, all that you long to be. And in this setting, we see Jesus. He's being pushed into an agenda. They're not asking Jesus who He is. They're not asking Jesus what He taught. They're not asking Jesus what He was trying to do. They're merely trying to get Jesus to incriminate Himself and manipulate Him to the point that they can crucify Him. And life isn't fair. And if they can even do that to Jesus, you have to understand that your reality is the same. That most of the time, people don't have the best in mind for you. That most of the time, people are trying to manipulate you to be like them. And that most of the time, people have an agenda for you. And they're happy with you if you're fulfilling that agenda. But if you don't fit into that, if you don't work into the scheme and plan they have, they don't like it. God doesn't want you to spend your life trying to fit and fill people's agendas. God doesn't intend for you to try to fit in. God's purpose and design for you is to be who you are and to let who you are radiate His Spirit and His love to the world around you. not try to be what you think you have to be. Not try to look like everyone else. Not try to fit the role that your parents or your friends or your family or your employer or your neighbors have for you. But for you to fulfill the purpose you were designed for. Jesus came for a purpose. And later we see that he answers this to Pilate. And Pilate said, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus asked, "Is that your own idea? Or did others talk to you about me?" Again, Jesus is saying, was that the agenda that you came up with? Or is that the agenda that these people gave to you? "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "It was your people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you've done?" Pilate says, I'm not one of you. "What do you mean? I didn't come up with this. I don't even know what this is about. What must you have done to make these people so angry?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would have fought to prevent my arrest. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You are right in saying I am a king. In fact, for this reason, I was born. And for this reason, I came into the world to testify to the truth. And everyone on the side of truth listens to me." See, Jesus said you can have your agendas. You can think you know it all. You can be part of the normal people. But the ones that will find the truth are going to find it through me. And my purpose is to fulfill what I came to do, to fulfill what the Father sent me to do. And though I am a king, my kingdom is not in this world. Jesus says, I have a purpose. My purpose doesn't look the way you want it to. My purpose isn't fulfilling the things that you think, and it doesn't have to do with your agenda. My purpose is outside and above your agenda. And you have your own agenda, and the Jews have their own agenda. But I have a purpose. And it doesn't matter what you do. Because my purpose isn't of this world. And that's one of the things that as followers of Jesus, we can learn great things from. Because your purpose is not of this world. If you're trying to find purpose in your job, if you're trying to find purpose in your family, if you're trying to find purpose in your community and the things you do and in this world, and you think like the other people who are helping with the needy and feeding the homeless and sending money to kids who are starving in Africa, that your purpose is that, then you're confused. You're being normal. Because your purpose, if you follow Jesus, is not of this world. It doesn't merely have to do with people's pain and suffering. It has to do with people's eternity. And your purpose is to be a reflection of the God who paid for everything they have done so that they might spend all of eternity with Him. And we're so confused in the church, and we're so confused in the Christian world and in the community that are followers of Jesus, that our purpose is supposed to look like the other people. And we try to fulfill agendas. We try to look like everyone else. We try to look like we're doing what all the other people are doing so that we fit in and we look right and everybody will like us. But like Jesus, we have to stand up and say, my purpose is not of this world. Because everybody wants to know, what are the things you're doing? You know, are you feeding the poor? Are you taking care of these people? Are you sending money to these places? Are you doing this? How big is your church? Did you build a building? Have you added a wing to it? Do you support missions? And then in your own life, they have questions for you. So you say you're a Christian, so what are you doing for people? Do you do what I do? Do you go down and help cook at the homeless shelter? Do you go out and help in the community? What have you done lately? And it's going to seem very dissatisfying to people with agendas when they understand that your purpose is not of this world. Those are all good things. It's always great to do good things. But sharing what Christ means to you, what He's done for you, and the hope of eternity with Him, that transcends all those things. That goes beyond all those things. Jesus says, I can't fit into your mold. I am not able to fulfill your definition of me. Because my purpose isn't to take an earthly kingdom. And my purpose isn't to come to help all of the Jews. And my purpose isn't to come and feed all the hungry and heal all the sick. My purpose is bigger than that. My purpose is heavenly and eternal. And for you, as a follower of Jesus, when you understand that your purpose is heavenly and eternal, it transcends what you do today, because it has to do so much more with tomorrow. And when you begin doing things not for people, not for the people, not because it makes you feel good to hand something to somebody who has less than you, or to do something for somebody who's hurting, but you begin to do things because you're doing it for your King, your Savior, for Jesus. Then it transcends the gift. It transcends the sacrifice. transcends the goals everyone has for you. And you begin to find what your purpose is, what your reason for living in this world is. Don't let definitions manipulate you to fulfill agendas, but allow yourself to transcend that agenda to fulfill your purpose. Heavenly Father,